They told you that you were too broken to be whole, that the weight of your trauma, your past, your tears made you less than, that you were damaged goods, unworthy. And somewhere along the line, you started to believe it. You looked at your scars and started seeing failure instead of survival. You looked at your cracks and started seeing shame instead of story. But let me tell you something. Your brokenness isn't your disqualification. It's your confirmation. God doesn't build strength on top of perfection. He builds glory out of ruin. You see, what feels like falling apart is often God pulling things away that were never meant to stay. You think you're breaking, but you're actually being refined. You think you're being punished, but you're being prepared. That ache you carry, it's not evidence that you're abandoned. It's evidence that heaven has marked you for more than shallow healing and surface-level joy. You were never meant to live half-healed and half-loved. So yes, the breaking hurts, but it's birthing something holy. People around you may look at your pain and say, she's too much. They see the symptoms and assume that's all you are. They see the fire and forget the gold it produces. But God looks at your brokenness and calls it usable, valuable, purposeful. He doesn't flinch when you cry. He doesn't back away when you're messy. He doesn't retreat when you rage in the midnight hours. He stays. He digs his hands deep into your hurt and starts shaping healing in secret places. And while the world is judging your pieces, God is planning your purpose. You're not too broken. You're too powerful to be left unprocessed. And that's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes the people who walk away aren't rejecting you. They're reacting to what they can't carry. You weren't made to shrink to fit their idea of healed. You weren't made to sit quietly in shame so they could feel comfortable in their avoidance. No, your life is louder than their silence. Your wounds speak louder than their words. And your future is not at the mercy of who mishandled your past. So stop apologizing for the process. Stop shrinking under the lie that you have to be put together before you can be used. Stop hiding the very places God plans to shine through. Because he's not ashamed of your broken. He's not surprised by your struggle. He's not distant from your pain. In fact, that's where he draws closest. Not in your perfection, but in your pouring out. When the world tells you that you're too broken to be chosen, remember this. God never asked for a polished resume. He asked for a surrendered heart. And sometimes surrender looks like falling apart in his presence until he shows you how he's been piecing you back together all along. So walk boldly with your scars. They are not signs of shame. They are proof that you made it through what tried to kill you. And if you're still breathing, that means God's not done. He's not finished writing your redemption. And the next chapter, it doesn't read broken, it reads becoming. You ever notice how people love you when you're easy to carry? When you're agreeable, available, not too much, not too quiet, not too loud, just enough to serve their comfort, but never enough to require their sacrifice. But the moment you start growing, the moment you start healing and speaking with clarity, the moment you stop bending over backward for their approval, suddenly you're changing. Suddenly you're hard to deal with. But the truth is, they didn't leave because you were broken. They left because you started becoming whole. There's something unsettling to people about your transformation. When you were constantly pouring, constantly apologizing for who you are, constantly making yourself smaller so others could feel bigger, they clapped for you. They cheered when your strength served them, not realizing that strength was killing you. But once you began to prioritize your peace, your purpose, your prayers, they didn't know how to handle you. They weren't prepared for the version of you that didn't shrink. Let me say this clearly. Your healing will cost you people who were only attached to your dysfunction. Some folks only feel needed when you're bleeding. They only feel important when you're lost. So when you start walking in the direction of wholeness, they'll try to convince you that something's wrong with you. They'll weaponize your boundaries. They'll mislabel your silence. They'll say you've distanced yourself, but really you just stopped begging to be understood. And it's not that they're evil. It's not that they meant harm, but not everyone has the capacity to love a becoming woman. Not everyone can walk with someone whose pain is turning into purpose. Some folks were never built for the weight of your anointing. They loved the version of you that was still hiding, still doubting, still waiting for permission. And now that you've stopped waiting and started walking, it unsettles what they thought was secure. Don't let that make you bitter. Let it make you better. Let it confirm that you were never crazy. You were just too heavy for shallow relationships. The ones who walk away weren't your loss. They were the proof. Proof that your destiny requires more than proximity. It demands alignment. It demands people who don't just love your light, but are strong enough to sit with you in your dark and still see your worth. So don't go back. Don't dilute your calling to fit in rooms God is calling you out of. Don't beg to stay where growth is not celebrated. You're not here to be palatable. You're here to be powerful. And power comes with pressure, with pruning, with people leaving. But God doesn't subtract unless He plans to multiply. When the wrong ones walk, it's only to make space for the ones who will stay, who will pray, who will protect what you're carrying without needing to control it. You are not too much. You are not too far gone. You are not broken beyond repair. You are simply stepping into a space they were never meant to occupy. Let them go. And thank God for the exit. Because what's ahead of you requires people who can carry what you're becoming, not just what you've been. Some people were never built to walk where God is calling you. They weren't equipped to handle the weight of what you carry. And that's okay. It doesn't make them bad. It just means they weren't chosen to hold your calling. There's a divine design over your life that doesn't require approval from people who only saw the surface. Because when God starts crafting a purpose inside of you, He does it with precision. He doesn't use ordinary hands for extraordinary work. And sometimes the hands that tried to hold you weren't trained to protect you. They were just trying to possess you. There's a weight that comes with destiny, a pressure that presses, a crushing that molds. And not everyone has the strength to witness that up close. Some can stand with you when it's easy, when it's loud, when the miracles are showing. But can they stand still when God is working in the silence? Can they hold space for you when your strength looks like tears, when your anointing looks like agony, when your growth looks like grief? A lot of people want access to the promise, but few are willing to carry the process. And if they weren't built for the process, don't be surprised when they can't stay for the promise. You're not too broken. You're being built. But the building takes time. It takes silence. It takes separation. And it takes a shedding of what can't go with you into the next season. Some people were only assigned to the version of you that didn't know how to say no, that didn't know how to protect your spirit, that didn't know how to discern the difference between company and covenant. But now you're becoming. Now you're starting to sense that where God is leading you can't be carried by just anyone. Now you see that access is sacred. So you have to stop mourning the absence of people who were never assigned to your future. They might have helped you survive a season, but they were never meant to steward your purpose. And when God starts exposing that, when He starts lifting the veil and revealing who can't go any further, it's not rejection. It's realignment. It's God showing you that His plan doesn't require people who can't handle the purity of it. It's not your job to convince anyone to understand your process. It's not your responsibility to keep shrinking so others feel secure in their complacency. If they were really called to walk with you, they would recognize that your becoming is holy ground. And holy ground requires reverence, not control, not jealousy, not manipulation, reverence. So let them misunderstand you. Let them call you distant, call you hard, call you guarded. What they don't know is that God has been covering you, consecrating you, and preparing you in ways they can't even see. Because what he's about to do through you requires a strength they don't possess. It's not a rejection, it's protection. So, don't resent who couldn't stay. Thank God they didn't. Because if they had, you might have settled for being held instead of being healed. And healing, real healing, demands that you walk with those who don't flinch when you bleed and don't fold when you break. Those who were built not to fix you, but to see you and still choose to stand. Sometimes we look at our reflection and only see what left, not what stayed. We see the emptiness, the absence, the missing pieces. Relationships that crumbled, people who disappeared when the storm came, friends who turned their backs when they couldn't benefit anymore. And it hurts. It really does. But let me ask you this. If they had the power to break you, then why are you still here? If they were necessary for your survival, then how are you still standing, still breathing, still becoming? That's because what left wasn't holding you up. God was. It was never their presence that kept you. It was his promise. And when that promise is real, it doesn't fall apart when people do. You may have been broken, but you weren't destroyed. And that matters, because even in the shattering, God was gathering. He was picking up pieces you didn't even know had value. He was saving parts of you others discarded. You called it abandonment, but God called it clearing the room. Clearing the room for glory to rise from the ruins. You were never too broken. You were just too deep for shallow love. You were too complex for surface conversations. Too prophetic for people who only wanted performance. They said you were too much, but what they really meant was they couldn't handle the magnitude of your heart, the power in your presence, the depth of your soul. They mistook your wounds for weakness, not knowing that every scar was a sign that God kept you when no one else could. See, the truth is, they didn't love you. They loved the comfort you gave them, the security, the support, the ease. But love isn't real if it vanishes the moment you become inconvenient. Love doesn't fold under pressure. Love doesn't exit when you're not perfect. So when they walked away, when they couldn't hold your calling, your tears, your truth, that wasn't a sign of your failure. That was a sign of their limit. But don't let what they did define you. Don't let their inability to hold you become the reason you stop healing. You've got to stop rehearsing their rejection in your mind like a song stuck on repeat. Because while you're sitting there wondering what you did wrong, heaven is standing up, declaring what God is doing right through you. He's using every bruise to build boldness, every tear to train your spirit, every ache to sharpen your discernment. He's not ignoring your pain. He's investing in your purpose through it. And that's what the enemy hopes you never figure out, that it wasn't about the people who left. It was about the strength that stayed, the endurance that kept rising inside of you, the resilience that refused to die, even when your heart wanted to give up. The enemy hoped you'd see yourself as abandoned, but God was hiding you, preserving you, positioning you for something greater than they could ever carry. So stop grieving who didn't stay. Start thanking God for who didn't break you. Start seeing yourself not through the lens of who walked away, but through the eyes of a God who never did. You are not too broken. You're just being prepared for hands strong enough to hold you the way God always intended. And when that day comes, you'll look back and realize they didn't leave because you were hard to love. They left because you were finally learning how to be loved right.